Greetings, NFL fans. Today is Friday, December 5th. This is the Shutdown Corner Podcast. I am Kevin Kaduk, here with Frank Schwab and Jay Busbee. Fellas, it was a big Thursday night. A lot of people tuned in, millions upon millions. And I want to know, do you think Allison Williams was more convincing as Peter Pan than Mary Martin?
Christopher Walken, I think, should be entrusted to run the Bears offense from here on out.
That'd be pretty sweet.
This is how bad the Bears season has gotten. At one point, I was watching Twitter. More people were talking about Peter Pan Live than they were actually talking about Cowboys versus Bears, which is insane. I turned over and was actually watching Peter Pan, and at one point, almost forgot the game was on. I was like, oh, I better go back and check. And the Bears actually kind of made it I don't even want to say they made it a game, but they cut the lead to 10 points. And I got a couple texts like, oh, the Bears going to pull this off? It's like, no.
No.
They are not going to pull this off. This was a quarter aberration in a otherwise season-long pit of despair. It is, they have 10 days until they play the Saints on Monday night at Soldier Field. And I just kind of wonder, it's not the Bears' MO to sacrifice anybody mid-season or even after a bad season. They usually get 4 or 5 years to figure things out. That's just not how the McCaskies work. But if there's ever a time just to have a sacrificial offering, it seems like this 10 days would be it. Frank, can you see it?
But who?
And who would you send off?
Well, I think Mel Tucker would be the obvious choice, their defensive coordinator, because that defense is it's boring, it's awful, it's there's just nothing there. That defense stinks. It's terrible. Is there any way Trestman's not their coach next year?
It's really crazy. I mean, obviously I'm pretty plugged into Chicago Twitter. I probably follow more Chicago fans than either of you guys do.
Sure.
Blackhawks are on the obviously more on the upswing. Bulls are a championship contender. Cubs and Sox seem to be building something. And then you have the Bears, the biggest team in town, just being just a general phenomenal disappointment. And it's not like they have to do something to stay relevant. They're the Bears. They're always going to be relevant. Right. They're always going to be more in the spotlight than any of those other teams. But at the same time, you've lost a lot of faith in a lot of people. And I think Trestman is easy enough to kind of get rid of. He's the outsider. He doesn't have a lot of political capital built up. But at the same time, that's Phil Emery's pick, right? So if you get rid of that, get rid of Trestman, you get rid of Phil Emery. And I'm more disappointed in how the Phil Emery era has turned out than the Mark Trestman, because Emery is billed as this progressive guy. He kind of he seemingly hit with a couple of his first few picks in Kyle Long and Kyle Fuller.
More polarizing conversation in Chicago: state of the Bears or Derrick Rose?
I think the Bears. It has to be the Bears. And people get disappointed with the Bears. I mean, the Bulls, people are into the Bulls, but I think people got fat and happy off the Jordan era. I still think that, at least
they're
that's
still
how
coasting
I
on that goodwill.
I feel like the Bulls could never
later?
win a championship ever again in my life, and I'd be fine. I honestly feel that way.
You've got all you need.
You probably should too. I mean,
right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's
the
okay.
Bears is different. The Bears could have won 6 in the 1980s, and you'd still want more. So I think the Bears are definitely more polarizing. Cutler is by far the most. Well, he used to be the most polarizing athlete in Chicago, because there used to be idiots like me who would defend him, and now I think everyone is just on the other side of the ship, and he's like on the mast. And
you know what? I've actually found, because I've been one of those. I've been pretty critical of Cutler the entire time. Mm-hmm. I find that nobody disagrees with me anymore. Like it used to be. Like I would say, like Jay Cutler's a average to maybe below average NFL quarterback. I get, what are you talking about? Yeah. Now it's like I say that, it's like people just shrug and
by used to, you mean like early October, right?
Yeah, seriously, yes.
It's obviously not all of his fault. This is not 2005 where the defense is world caliber and all world, and the quarterback position is getting done. Nobody is getting it done, but at the same time, he's not extending drives. He's not
And he's
keeping the defense off the field.
He's taking up 10% of their salary cap too. I mean, that's not
and that's
sneezed at.
That's the problem that you have when you have a team that goes and throws so much money into one player or into one section of players. Across sports, you've had the Baltimore Orioles did that for a while. The New York Knicks did that for a while. What do you do as a franchise? Do you just suck it up and say, all right, the next 5 years we're screwed?
I think so.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in the NFL, though. I mean, you think about how easily things can turn. We rewind this a year. Maybe we're having this exact same conversation about the Dallas Cowboys and their defense. Remember how poor they looked last year? We were talking that. So
well, the NFL you can cut contracts a lot easier. So
you obviously can't. So it's not a 5-year rebuilding program. You can't just say, oh, we're not going to do it. And so what? The Bears could get out of Cutler after the third year?
Something like that, yeah. It would take they couldn't do it this offseason, realistically. They could, but it would just be insane. The thing that just kills me about the Bears, and I think that if there weren't so many bad teams in the NFL, like I said this last night to somebody, I said they're a bottom 5 NFL team. And I thought about it. I thought, no, there's a lot of really, really bad teams in the NFL. Like, I'm not going to put them below the Buccaneers and the Giants yet. So
they're just underachieving.
They're playing at that level. Yeah. They're now playing at that level where you watch them play and you think this is a bottom 5 NFL team. And what kills me, we've talked about this, is I knew the defense, it was pretty obvious. I thought the defense would be fixed, and then you watch in the preseason defense, okay, it's not going to be very good. If they were losing 38-35 games, I would get it. I would understand. I don't get why it's 35-7 going into the fourth quarter, because how are you stuck on 7 points? No matter what we think of Jay Cutler, he's not terrible. He's not, just bottom of the barrel bad. He's just mediocre. And they have Marshall. I mean, I got hurt last night, but Jeffrey and Forte and Bennett and Kyle Long and whatever, and they just do nothing on offense for quarters at a time, and it's like, isn't this Mark Trestman's fault? Isn't this what why is Mark Trestman's offense this bad? Honestly,
it makes no sense, because here's a guy that last year took Josh McCown and turned him and let him go off and make $15 million for how well he played in the system, right?
Exactly.
So what happened to Trestman's system? Did people catch up to it? No one in Chicago knows the answer. No one can figure it out. But to me, it seems like it got awful conservative, right?
Yes.
You look at some of those play calls. I don't know how many times on 3rd and 9 they're checking down to a receiver at 6 yards out.
The Thanksgiving game blew me away because everything was short. Everything. At some point, Cutler had it was something like 20 some attempts and he had 100 yards or something like that. And it's like, this is not Jay Cutler. This is. You got a strong arm guy. He's going to make some mistakes.
These great physical specimens in Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. You've got a game-changing tight end in Martellus Bennett. I mean, maybe not the best tight end in the world, but someone who could do something, right? I mean,
7 or 8, yeah.
He's probably made more plays than Jeffrey and Marshall have.
Yeah, that's been the thing. Jeffrey's completely disappeared.
And then you've got the most underrated running back of the last 10 years in Matt Forte, who has been great. Was great last year. And then you just turn it into this, and it's not even a situation where, the offensive line has had injuries, but it doesn't seem like they've been as bad as they have in the past few years, which is what actually earned Jay Cutler a lot of his capital for the people who did like him. People were saying, well, let's get this guy some time, let's get him some protection. That hasn't been the case this year. It's just been a boring offense, a conservative offense. So, yeah, I think Trestman does have to go, because you are not fulfilling your deal as the offensive genius, and you're not bringing anything to this team.
But isn't that more Cutler's fault, though? If you've got a quarterback who's continually checking down, I mean, a good comparison would be San Francisco, where you have Kaepernick going and throwing all these little short routes. You saw that on the Thanksgiving game. He was doing nothing but looking at the short routes underneath and not going long. Is the quarterback making the bad decisions, or is he being set up by his coach? I don't know enough about the Chicago system to know, but it seems like this might be more on Cutler than on Trestman.
It could be a combination of both. Too,
yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. They might be
wanting Cutler to be a little more safer. They drilled it into him. Don't throw deep. Don't throw deep. Don't throw deep. And then what do you got? You got a guy with a cannon arm who's a check down Charlie. I mean, that doesn't help you.
Yeah, he definitely has made a lot of bad decisions. He made bad decisions early in the game, early in the season. So you think that maybe they have tried to handcuff him, and that's just been a complete disaster.
They got him on a Tom Brady leash.
Let me bring up one thing here. We can kind of spread into this a little bit more now that you brought up the 49ers. a big topic of conversation, and everyone's on their Christmas wish list here in Chicago. People are saying, okay, things are going to break down in San Francisco, and Jim Harbaugh is going to come back and save the Bears. Rick Morrissey of the Chicago Sun-Times wrote a story and said that's a great idea. He would be exactly what this franchise needs. It'd be a shot in the arm, but it's something that the McCaskies would never do, and I completely agree with him because you look back, and they've just gone the easy route. Mark Trestman, Lovie Smith, Dick Duran, Dave Wannstedt. These are not hellraisers. They are not shit kickers. They are company men, right? So they would never bring Jim Harbaugh in and give him carte blanche, never give him the personnel decisions. But, man, that would be a lot of fun to watch, right?
I don't know that Jim Harbaugh necessarily wants all the personnel decisions. I mean, there was rumors that he was upset with Trent Baalke and all that, but he just seems like a guy who doesn't mind coaching. I don't know. But, yeah, I think that the Bears pull a Joe Madden, basically, a Theo Epstein Joe Madden, where you go after Harbaugh and you try to hire him. And if you hire him, you say, well, hey, sorry, Trestman, we got a better guy. Really, like... I mean, Jim Harbaugh I think it's pretty clear. Well, who knows with Jim Harbaugh, but it seems pretty clear that he'll be available, and I think that'll be a great fit for Chicago.
Jim Harbaugh's become this decade's version of Bill Parcells, where everybody says that he would make the difference, that he would come to our team, he'd come to our franchise, whether college or pro. You know, we did that story this last Sunday about Harbaugh possibly getting interest from the Raiders and the Jets, and my email inbox was barraged. It must have been 10 different teams saying, bring him to Carolina, bring him to Atlanta, we need him here. So, yeah, he's become kind of that great white whale that everybody looks to for salvation.
I find it so funny that we see all these conversations like, which college is Jim Harbaugh going to go to? Is Chip Kelly going to go back to college? Why would you ever go back to college if you were an NFL coach? Why would you go back and sit in recruits' living rooms? Why would you have to suck up to boosters? Why would you want any of that?
You're making good money, especially Chip Kelly. The Chip Kelly thing angered me because it's like we know we're in a business and probably people could figure this out too. But the most reckless thing in sports journalism is coaching or college football coaching searches. Like people just throw out a name and that's it. Like we're going, like the boosters, the fans get crazy, and somebody threw out Chip Kelly to Florida and. It was so ridiculous. Why is Chip Kelly? Chip Kelly's 19-9 as an NFL coach. He's on his way to winning a second straight division. They talked about it in Philadelphia this week. He has more power than any NFL coach right now, or just as much, where he basically gets whatever he wants. He's that powerful. He's got that much cachet built up there. Why on earth is he going back to college? Why? What sense does that make? Why would Jim? And the only thing, and maybe it's just because I love my alma mater, but I think about Jim Harbaugh, and if Michigan came calling, well, it's his alma mater. Maybe that tugs on the heartstrings and he goes. But Jim Harbaugh, like we just talked about, could have any number of NFL jobs. Like, there are a lot of NFL teams, I think, that would fire their coach if Jim Harbaugh said, I want your job. So why is he going back to college? People need to think a little bit. College football is just not the same as NFL.
Yeah, but let me take the other side of that. A college football coach in a small town is the closest thing that this country has to a dictator. I mean, you absolutely own the town if you are successful, and the recruiting almost takes care of itself. Now, granted, you've got to have that name value, or you've got to have those wins, but there's an awful lot of power and an awful lot of ability to influence your team that you have as a college coach that you don't have as a pro when they'll tune you out.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say some guys really do like college better. That's fine. That's awesome. But I don't. If you're a successful guy like a Chip Kelly, why are you going to go try to return Florida back around? What sense does that make?
I mean, doesn't college have more of the? I want to tread carefully here, but okay, Barry Alvarez, right? Barry Alvarez never wanted to go past Wisconsin. He went there. He became the king of Wisconsin. And he got to that throne, and he was comfortable. He is, yeah. He was. I saw him at the Kohl Center on Wednesday. He was walking around like a modern-day Maharaja, I guess.
So was he being bored about on a litter? Had 4 offensive linemen carrying him.
But you have guys like Chip Kelly or Harbaugh who are like the type A of the type A personalities. Like, what more is going to satiate them than the NFL? They're not happy just going to the rubber chicken dinners.
No, and especially a guy like, I think about Chip Kelly, Philadelphia, if he wins the Super Bowl there, he will have a statue, he'll have a street named after him. They will literally ring out his name for decades from now, talking about the great Chip Kelly. Really,
talking about Dick Vermeil.
It's
I love
it's
Dick
like
Vermeil.
Ditka. Chip Kelly And I guess not quite the same because Ditka played there and he fits the city really well personality-wise. But Chip Kelly, if they win a Super Bowl there, will become the Mike Ditka of Philadelphia. He'll be a hero forever if they win a Super Bowl, Chip Kelly. And they might. They're on that path. I mean, they're one of those teams that really could. So why would Chip Kelly all of a sudden leave that? Like he might leave if he fails in a couple of years, but it's not now. He's on the path of maybe being one of the top 5 NFL head coaches and winning a Super Bowl there and being basically a hero forever in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Which would you rather do? Which would you guys rather do? Coach or football or pro or college?
I would hate college football just because of the recruiting. The recruiting is just weird. Like, I mean, these schools build like $40 million practice facilities, and let's put it this way: it ain't for the kids on campus. It's you have this weird like. We're building these unbelievable locker rooms and dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into facilities, and it's to lure 16-year-old kids to come. It's just creepy and weird.
I completely agree. I would not want to sit in those living rooms. I would not want to suck up to the boosters. I would not want to have it on my reputation the minute an 18-year-old kid goes out there and date rapes somebody.
Yeah,
I'd rather go to the cushiness of the NFL, your Monday through Sunday thing. Yeah,
the NFL really is just a profession. It is. We're all here for a business, and we treat each other like professionals. And you're not dealing with a lot of immature kids who. You talk about college basketball too, with the AAU coaches and all that kind of stuff. And I just wouldn't want to deal with it.
Well, that's the other thing too, like the undertableness of college. Would you want to deal with all that stuff?
Yeah, that's true. And there's so much more of an influence that people you don't trust can have on your reputation in college. That you brought it exactly. That some kid goes and drives his car that a booster gave him right through the front window of a 7-Eleven, and it's on your reputation, even if you were 100 miles away.
Although I will say, if it's an ego booster after, you're probably going to want to go to college because you can become. Absolute, like we talked about, dictator, hero, whatever.
And if you're successful, you will be completely insulated and be set up with a whole bunch of yes men willing to take the fall.
Exactly, yeah.
It's true.
That's what we all need is a bunch of interns who will take all the heat for us.
Like, let's think about going back to the Wisconsin example. Like, is Mike McCarthy sort of on par as a coach as Barry Alvarez? Or probably. But Barry Alvarez has a statue outside of him, outside of the Camp Randall Stadium of Barry Alvarez. I mean, he's got a statue. Mike McCarthy's just kind of a guy in Green Bay, and they're going to move on at some point. And he's going to be known as, Mike McCarthy.
It's also worth saying too, Alvarez has not only been influential in Wisconsin, but he's had his hooks in a lot of the BCS stuff. I mean, he is a national voice in that sport, so there is that side of it as well.
Like, I just don't think. I guess the point I'm trying to make is no NFL coach is going to become bigger than like Nick Saban in Alabama. It's just not going to happen. That's just it doesn't work that way. And so if it's ego booster after trying to.
That's interesting. That is very interesting, right? Because
you used to have that.
Like Tom Landry was huge, right? Vince Lombardi was
that's
huge.
a different era. I think.
Will that ever happen again?
Like Bill Belichick. Is Bill Belichick bigger in the New England area than Nick Saban is in Alabama? I'd say no, not even close.
Probably not. But that's also. What if he was more of an effervescent person?
Yeah, if he was more
magnetic.
I guess maybe, but I just don't think it's very rare for an NFL coach to be a Mike Ditka or Tom Landry or Vince Lombardi. It's just, or Bill Walsh. It's really rare. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they think of Pete Carroll that way in Seattle because it was their first championship, but it's pretty rare. You need to get up to such a. I'm one of the top 10 of all time, and in college, I don't really think it works quite that way. Maybe it does. I don't know. But it just seems like if you're in it for your legacy and having a city.
Look at Lovie Smith. He didn't win a Super Bowl here, but he's probably, like I think Landsberg said, right behind Hallis and Ditka in terms of Bears coaches, and people just don't look at him favorably at all. And people would take 10-6 right this year, right?
That's also because the stars in college sports are the coaches. The players come and go, and sometimes even after just a year or two, especially in college basketball. But the coaches are the link, whereas a player can have a lot more longevity in the NFL, and you can fixate on the player much more so than the coach.
Yeah, I don't think that there's ever been a coach who's been the star of an NFL team, except maybe like with the guys we just talked about. Maybe Jim Harbaugh, because he is the guy who comes up when we talk about the Niners. So maybe he has, just because of his personality, I think, has gotten to that point. But in college, especially I watched a ton of college basketball. In college basketball, 90% of the commentary is about the coach. You talk about, Bill Self has won the Big 12 10 straight years, and Coach K is a great leader, and Bo Ryan and his system. And that's just the way it goes in college. You're right. That's who the stars are there.
All right. Let's move on to talking about Week 14. Decent slate. What are you guys thinking?
It's all right. There's some good games, and it's getting interesting because just everybody's so bunched up. Like I wrote about the AFC playoff picture the other day. The NFC's kind of the same way. That's what's going to be interesting. Not Giants Titans though. I'll say that. I'll leave Giants Titans off the list.
You're not interested in that one?
No, not gonna be tuned in very. Like, is anybody is there a person on Earth interested? Like, I guess Odell Beckham fantasy owners. That's about it. Like, what is your subset of people watching Giants Titans?
Well, yeah, fantasy playoffs are starting this week, pretty much.
Yeah,
so.
I guess if you had, but not even many. Like, who on the Titans is on any fantasy football teams? Like, maybe Delaney Walker. Maybe not Zach Mettenberger, probably not Eli Manning. But Rashad Jennings is hurt.
That would be. We need to get our stat guys to work on that. Which team has the lowest percentage of starting players on fantasy teams? It's got to be the Titans.
I have Bishop Sankey.
Yeah, I have him stashed too. Yeah.
Goodness, that makes me sad.
Yeah, he was.
I drafted him because you said he'd be good, Frank.
Well, that's my fault.
Well, that's in your 20-team league, so.
Yeah, it's a 20-team league. That should be pointed out. I think that the Tennessee Titans probably are last. The Buccaneers have some guys. So, well, the Raiders. Who on the Raiders is on anybody's fantasy team? Nobody's got Derek
Janikowski.
Oh boy. Ugh. Yeah, it's got to be the Raiders actually. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, there are some big matchups here with a lot riding on them. The biggest one, it seems, is Ravens Dolphins. And Frank, you can explain why.
It's just this. Everybody, there's 6 teams at 7-5 in the AFC tied for that last spot, and tiebreakers come into play. And this is a game. Whoever loses this is probably done. Not done, but you're in a bad spot. You probably need to win out if you lose this one. So, I think that's the key game. I think Colts Browns is key for the Browns, and that's the only I think head-to-head matchup, except maybe Steelers Bengals. That's just whoever loses this is in a bad way. Whoever wins this is in a good way. I think that's the key game on Sunday.
And then again, the late games have two premium matchups. The afternoon Seahawks travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. That could have a lot of home field advantage implications. And then the Patriots are at the Chargers, and if they can get past the curse of Bieber, they'll be in a good spot if they can upend San Diego there. But San Diego, they are leading the AFC wildcard race by a game over that entire glut of teams.
And they had the toughest schedule. They have a tough schedule down the stretch. I mean, so I think it's almost like if they didn't have a one-game lead, they'd be done. So I think the one-game lead is kind of mitigated by the fact that their schedule is just brutal down the stretch. They play the Patriots and Broncos in back-to-back weeks. I mean, and then they play at Kansas City, and I can't remember their 4th game, but it's tough too. And the Chargers if the Chargers make the playoffs, they've earned it because they have a really tough road.
And that Seahawks-Eagles game is fascinating as well because this is kind of a test for Seattle. It's either way, it's going to say something. They've got to keep pace with Arizona, even though Arizona's stumbling. And if they're able to go through Philadelphia, then that sets a tone for going into the playoffs. But this is a key step. It seems strange to be saying that a defending Super Bowl champion needs momentum, but I think that they do, and this is the place for them to get it.
And you know what? I think it's the same for the Eagles, though, where I wrote about the lead on Power Rankings was the Eagles are the best team nobody's talking about. And nobody really is. I think it's because of Sanchez and nobody believes in him or whatever. But when we talk about the big-time teams in the NFL, the Eagles never get brought up as a Super Bowl contender. Well, you beat the Seahawks, that changes. I think this is a high-profile game against a hot team at home. I think they're only 1 point favorites maybe. You pick them at home. So people don't really believe in them. But if Sanchez plays well against that Seahawks defense and they win this game, I think all of a sudden we're going to start to see the narrative change on the Philadelphia Eagles, and people are going to start saying, wow, this really might be the best team in the NFC.
Yeah. Let's get into our lock of the week, our upset of the week, and the game we would pay to see. We'll start with the upsets. Anything out there really strike you? Titans over the Giants being
God. I have one that's a minor one, but I believe the Arizona Cardinals are underdogs at home. And I think the pendulum has swung on them a little too much. I think that people forget that the Cardinals are still a pretty good team, and yeah, they lost at Atlanta, and that's a really bad loss. But it doesn't mean they're all of a sudden going to lose to a Kansas City one-dimensional offense at home. I think that they come out a little bit angry, a little bit of chip on their shoulder. I think the defense plays really well, and they win a really low-scoring game. It's not much of an upset. I think, like I said, they're only like 1-point underdogs, but I think the pendulum has swung too far in the Cardinals. They're still a good team.
Yeah.
Jake.
Ravens over the Dolphins in a small upset. The Dolphins are barely favored by about 2.5, 3. I think the Ravens are going to hold on. I think they're going to put themselves in the driver's seat for this those last spots in the AFC playoffs. So that'll be the best game to watch for the 1 o'clock set.
All right, I'm going to go with the Jaguars. Win 2 in a row. They are hosting the Texans. Why not? Texans are at the bottom end of that pack. I think Blake Bortles at some point is going to have a big game. He hasn't yet. He hasn't looked great at times, but I think they'll put it together. I think the Jaguars get it done. You don't like it, Frank?
No, I don't see it, but hey, where things have happened.
All right. Lock of the week.
Now, here's where I'm going to pause it right here, because there's only one guy whose lock matters this week, and it's you, Kevin. Kevin,
I need two locks.
As we've said before on the show, Kevin is still alive in a survivor pool. I'm thrilled by this. I'm excited by this. I'm impressed by this. It's hard to do. So who do you got, Kevin? Who are your picks for the survivor pool this week?
So I have to pick 2 because the threshold has not been met. I think you have to pick 2 if there's like more than 35 in week 14. And obviously, I've picked a lot of teams so far, so there's just some teams that are off the board that I can't pick. Your Patriots, your Broncos, et cetera, et cetera.
All your good options are gone.
So this week, my locks that I'm definitely going with are the 49ers at the Raiders, which I feel pretty good about. 49ers, I usually don't like to pick road teams, even though at this point you kind of have to, and almost got caught with it at the Bengals, the Buccaneers last week, but did not, thanks to that 12th man. But the 49ers, it's not a road game, right? I mean, half of that stadium, if not more, is going to be 49ers fans.
There'll be a few 49ers.
The Raiders are actually bringing in extra security because you just want to talk about probably the closest thing that there is to a European soccer-style riot. It would happen in that Niners-Raiders matchup. Go to YouTube, type in Niners-Raiders fight. You will just be disgusted and shocked.
The 49ers crowds at Candlestick were no joke, man. I mean, the Raiders get that rep, but the 49ers crowds are no joke at Candlestick.
So, 49ers over Raiders, I should feel good about that, right?
You should. I stamp my seal of approval on it. I think that you're dealing with a short deck. You can't pick the Packers over the Falcons. So I think that do you have the Packers? Is that one of your teams?
So my other pick is down to the Lions over the Buccaneers or the Packers over the Falcons.
You've done a great job managing this to have those 2 options for you.
So I am going with Packers over Falcons, which makes me a little nervous because it does seem like this could be a letdown game for the Packers. But I think the Packers, their previous 2 Monday night games this year, have won by combined total, something like 70-14. So I've got that going for me. The other thing is, if the Buccaneers somehow spring that upset against the Lions, it's going to take out a big chunk of my pool because a lot of people have already picked the Packers and won't be able to pick them and are putting their
eggs in the Lions basket. Huh?
Eggs in the Lions basket, and by saving the Lions, then I can pick them at home next week against the Vikings. So
look at this, man.
I don't know if people are interested in this or not. I have no idea, but that is my exact.
Maybe not. I'm interested. I want to know you're picking, man. This is fascinating to me. Like we talked about, these survivor pools, I think most people play them or at least know what they are. They're so fun if you get there's a tipping point though where they become, oh, this is really fun to get this late in a survivor pool, to like, this is really stressful to be in this pool.
I told Frank during that Buccaneers Lions or Buccaneers Bengals game that I had like Game 7 Stanley Cup final level stress, and I really did.
Trust me, Jay, the IMs were fantastic.
Oh, I'm sure.
Solid. Yeah. I was trying to talk them down a little bit. And I like Eggman on too, so I was poking.
Well, two Saturdays in a row, I picked against the Buccaneers, and they both took 10-0 leads against the Bears and the Bengals.
That's
so
right.
I was in a bad place.
That's another reason not to pick up against the Buccaneers this weekend. That seems like tempting fate to go too many times.
The revenge of Frank. Yeah, I'm even nervous about if I get through next week and pick the Lions over the Vikings. That makes me nervous.
Everything can make you nervous at this point. I mean, it's just tough. That's the thing. That's why these survivor pools are. You couldn't do a survivor pool in college football because you'd pick the 40-point favorite every week and get through. I mean, it'll happen, but NFL ain't like that, man. It's tough. Look at the 49ers lost to the Raiders. Would we be that surprised? Like, I mean, would it be like, oh my God, we're going to be talking about this to our grandkids? No, not really. Like, it would just be, okay, the 49ers have kind of
I'd feel a lot better if I was picking the 2013 49ers. I'll tell you that.
Right. So,
if that happens,
lucky, Kevin.
Harbaugh might not come back to San Francisco. He might just jump on that plane to Michigan or wherever.
You could buy a lot of the bourbon stout, whatever beer that you were buying the other day with that cost money.
I will buy a round for the entire bar if that
Sweet.
There you go.
Hey, let's just move on to the games you'd pay to see because apparently your locks don't matter, as Frank just said. So
no, not compared to yours, brother.
No.
That's the big one.
Game you'd pay to see.
For me, it's Seahawks Eagles, just because I think it's a great contrast in styles and in coaching. I think that we have these two great storylines, and I hope it's a good game. We've had such bad games this year that I hope this is just a good game. That it comes down to the end. I think it will be too. I'm really interested to see both teams. I think we're going to learn, even though it's late in the season, we should know a lot about these teams. We will learn a lot about both of these teams because, hey, are Seahawks back? Are the Eagles for real? Bring it on. That's a great game.
Yeah, and I'm taking the other big Sunday evening game, the Pats-Chargers. I want to see how the Patriots do, how they rebound from last week. I want to see if San Diego is for real. Even though the stadium is an absolute dump, it's located in San Diego, so it really can't be that bad at all. So that's the one that I would pay to see.
Since you guys have already put your stamp on that, I guess I would probably go Falcons-Packers. I got a little skin in that game. I've been up to Lambeau all year to go watch a game. Monday night, why not?
Why don't you sneak out, see if you can go do it?
By the way, what did we think about the? Speaking of other games on the slate, one of the other good games that we haven't talked about yet, really much. Colts at Browns. What did you guys think of the Johnny Hoyer decision?
I would say it was probably the wise one for the short term to go with the established guy, but you've got time on Manziel. If you're going to be conservative, but the flip side of that is that conservatism hasn't worked to this point. Why not see what Manziel could do for you?
I completely disagree with Jay. I completely disagree with Frank, who actually wrote that hire was a wise decision. You're the Cleveland Browns. You might win at 10-6. You might get into the playoff. At 10-6, you could get into the playoffs. You could win that division, or in a more likely Cleveland scenario, you could go 10-6 and finish last in that division, which is still on the table, believe it or not. Go with the future. See what you have over these four games. You're not winning a Super Bowl with either quarterback. Go with the guy that you really need to figure out with what you have.
LeBron James
could he misstep? Could he, is there going to be a knee-jerk reaction if he does have bad games? Yes, but Brian Hoyer is not your guy. I don't care what he does this offseason. You can't commit big money to him. Right. Not when you just committed a first-round pick to Johnny Manziel. And he's a guy that we saw can change a game on that one drive. He's not going to do that every time out, but you have to see what you have. So Johnny Manziel forever.
I just think that you're so close to the playoffs here. You gotta do what's best to try to get into the playoffs.
For what?
You've been in the playoffs one time since you've been back in the NFL. Like, making the playoffs for the Cleveland Browns is a big deal at this point. It should be a big deal.
You got to think bigger than that. If you're the Cleveland Browns, so you go in and then you lose a first-round game to the Colts again?
Yes, I think that would be a very successul season for them.
The bar is very low for Cleveland.
I think making the playoffs to the Cleveland Browns and the Buffalo Bills are two teams that means more to anybody else than any other of these playoff teams.
But if you get in and lose that game, what does it matter? Great, you had another. It's
something to build on. You still have a young team. It's something to build on. First-year coach.
You build on Johnny Manziel regardless of what happens.
But I don't think Johnny's ready. I think that's my whole deal with Johnny Manziel is I just think don't do the RG3 with him. Make sure he's ready to run an NFL offense, and I think that's going to take another offseason and see if he's willing to commit to it. I just think the chance of Brian Hoyer September showing up is better than the chance that Johnny Manziel just takes the NFL by storm. And maybe Johnny will. We might find out.
Get him the reps.
Could be.
I figure out now instead of week 1 through 4 next year.
You know what though? They can always make it. Let's say they lose their next two, or let's say they even lose on Sunday. They can just go right back to Johnny. I don't think you can go from Manziel to Hoyer. I think you can go from Hoyer to Manziel. I mean, once you make the move, it's over. But I still think they might do it on Sunday. That stadium is going to be pretty crazy on Sunday because imagine Hoyer in the first quarter throws a bad pick, it gets returned. Oh my goodness, that whole crowd is going to be just in a lather.
They're going to be screaming for Manziel in the first third and long, man. What are you kidding?
They're going to be chanting his name. It's the moment he grabs his helmet to warm up, that place is going to go berserk. It is going to be a scene there, man. It is going to be. To me, the Ravens-Dolphins is a better game in the early set, but that's a game that Colts-Browns one I'm going to be watching, man. That's going to be fun to watch.
Do you still watch at the Buffalo Wild Wings?
I do, yes. So I should get some kind of a sponsorship or something.
You probably should. We need to get them to sponsor us, yeah. But do you just section out one TV and then laser in on that and then ask them to...
I usually have a group of TVs, that I tell them if you could set these up with these 3 games, because those are, we split up the games among our shutdown crew, and I usually, these 3 games here and the games I'm not like focusing on other screens, but I keep an eye on everything, yes. The Colts Browns would be on.
I have no idea how you do that. What do you do when you go to the bathroom? Who watches your computer?
Who's going to take my computer?
Takes it.
Dude, man, BW3, I've seen the crowds there.
It's a very, very different crowd here in Colorado, Kevin.
How many stains are on your computer when you're done with the day? What's your usual order?
I honest to God, this is the truth. I usually get a salad. I really do. Like I know, I'm boring, but because if I sit there, honest to God, if I sit there for 17 straight Sundays and just pound down wings all day for 6 hours, I'd probably be dead by the Super Bowl.
Well, and then you also have the typing considerations. Your computer would be just a Caribbean jerk style mess by week 4.
I do enjoy their soft pretzels for an appetizer, though. I will say that they're fantastic. Like stadium style,
Yeah, did you guys ever see that Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry is at like a restaurant, someone tells him to watch his computer, and then he gets distracted and the computer gets stolen, and the guy comes back and says, I asked you to watch my computer.
I hate that, man. I hate when people at the airport are like, could you watch my suitcase? Like, no. I don't want this responsibility.
People do that? I would feel
of course, yes.
They tell you not to leave your bags unattended or whatever.
Yeah, they're attended if your buddy who you just met 2 minutes ago at Gate C is going to watch them, then they're attended.
It's a complex negotiation.
Watch my stuff.
Man, you schlepp that bag to the McDonald's line yourself, pal.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Bring me back an Egg McMuffin and we're talking, but no, I don't want to watch your stuff.
Give me access to the damn outlet right there so I can charge up before the plane.
All right. Anything else before we launch into the weekend?
I don't think so. It's gonna be a fun weekend of football. There's just so many teams that are in the race, and they're gonna get crossed off the list this week as we get closer.
It makes me sad that the Bears aren't.
Yeah, it's tough. Those are always tough when your team is out of it. That I thought about that today, or last night. I was thinking, wow, there's only I think 3 more Thursday night games, and now 2. I don't think they play one on week 17. So we're really getting down to the end of it. It's going to be exciting because there's so many teams. There's so much to be decided yet.
They don't play one on the week 17 because it's
I
Christmas.
Believe so. I mean, I might be wrong about that, but I always thought that it's 16 Sunday games on week.
Yeah, 17. Don't we have Saturday games again this year? Or
Sunday has with 17 games. There's no Monday night or Thursday night. Yeah, Saturday games are back. I am a big. I say I'm a big fan of that, and then I'm going to be working on a Saturday all day and be like, ugh, I hate this. But I remember as a kid, we always had Saturday games late in the season, man. It was great. Once the Army-Navy game had passed, basically, they needed something on Saturday afternoon. We got NFL football. It was awesome.
Yeah, free football.
Cool. Well, we will be back here on Tuesday for the next edition of the Shutdown Corner Podcast. I am Kevin Kaduk, here with Frank Schwab and Jay Busbee. We thank you for listening. Have a great weekend.